Are you looking for some awesome ways to farm loot on the newly remastered Valguero map on ARK Survival Ascended? Well, you've come to the right place. In this video, I'll be showcasing my top 5, in no particular order, so without further ado, let's get straight into it. Kicking things off, we have the Lava Cave, which holds the artifact of the Crag. The best thing about this loot spot is that it is a relatively small artifact cave, so you won't have to go too far or fight too many nasty creatures to get to the loot. The cave entrance can be found around 34.2 latitude, 51.4 longitude, in the direct center of the map. It is very easy to spot if no one has built above or has harvested this giant pink blossom tree above the cave. In this cave, 3 cave loot crates can spawn at a time, consisting of blue, yellow and red crates. Once picked up, these crates did however instantly respawn. I picked up 3 crates, left the cave, came back in after waiting around at the entrance for around a minute, and all 3 had respawned. After looting it twice, I tested it for a 3rd time and they did not seem to respawn on that occasion, so it is worth coming back in after you first loot it, just in case they do double respawn. I did also test this out again after returning 45 minutes later, and the crates did double respawn once again, so you're basically getting 6 crates every time you visit this cave. Anyway, there are only a few spots where they can spawn in the lava section, but usually on the side of small cliffs around the cave walls, so watch your step as you don't want to be taking a cheeky bath in the lava below. It is probably one of the easiest sources of high quality loot on the map. There are a few dangers and threats that you need to look out for in this cave. Very hot temperatures, risk of falling into boiling hot lava, high level cave creatures, which of course includes the typical suspects guarding the artifact, the Uranios, the Titanoboas, Scorpions, Arthropluras, and most notably the Onyx. These do spawn in the artifact room where most of the loot is located, so will be the biggest danger to us. There is a unique perk of running this cave that we do not usually have access to when running artifact caves, and that is flyers can actually be used in this cave. Well, they can be used on my server at least, and I have cave flying turned off. I'm pretty sure flyers could enter this cave in ASE too though. Anyway, you'll be able to fit a Pteranodon in through the entrance, and I guess it can be a bit dicey, but you can easily bait the bats away from the loot and grab it in time before they reach you, fly off and just rinse and repeat until you have all the loot. Fly out and come back a minute later, rinse and repeat again, and return half an hour to 45 minutes later. I would highly advise bringing parachutes and of course a crossbow with a bunch of grappling hooks, just in case you mess up, depending on what creature you run the cave with. It is by far the quickest and easiest loot farm on Valguero. You'll be in and out within a minute or so. Quick and easy loot is always too good to pass up. Up next, we have deep sea loot crates, which you can find in the Abyss. The Abyss is Valguero's version of the ocean, found deep below the main river/lake flowing through the middle. There are a number of entrances to this area, and all are pretty well hidden. I'm just going to show the easiest one to find, and the one I like to use, which is found furthest right of the main river or lake, or whatever you want to call it, when looking at the map. Located at around 63.6 latitude, 73.2 longitude. Right below the white cliffs, so it is very easy to spot once diving into the water. Heading through into the cave entrance, you will traverse a very long tunnel that will eventually lead you down into the heart of the Abyss. I've found a bunch of different loot crate locations that spawn down here, maybe around 10 or so locations, so if you are unsure of the spots, then it might be worth jotting them down and adding them as waypoints until you become more familiar with them. I'm pretty certain you can find 3 spawning at once, but similarly to the first method, they tend to respawn very quickly. And of course, there is more spots to check than the guaranteed 3 or so spots from the first cave, but if you plan on staying down here a while, there could be some nice loot ready to snatch up. Unfortunately, these drops are all deep sea loot crates, so the quality of items dropped is pretty shocking. You can still find some good loot occasionally, but honestly, I would only bother looting these if I plan on coming down here to tame something. They are just not worth the trouble at all, but if you are interested in farming these drops, I'll stick the coordinates down in the pinned comment for all the drop locations I've found so far. Valguero also adds its own variant of land beacons. I've done a good bit of exploring so far, and I've only found Valguero drops for purple, yellow and red, so all the higher quality of crates. All the lower level drops seem to just be regular drops that you'd find on other standard ARK maps, or the Scorched Earth drops. Of course, in-game there's no way to tell that these are Valguero drops, as you'll also find Scorched Earth variants of these colours too. Purple, yellow and red crates are also great for farming loot, so you do get the best of both worlds when hunting these drops. But I did want to mention these drops as it is potentially the best way to find Deinonychus and Megaraptor saddles, along with a bunch of tasty other loot. I do plan on doing a loot table guide video to find out what we can find in all these new drops, so stay tuned for that. Up next is the Drakeling, which is a creature included with the Lost Colony Early Access Expansion Pass, costing £29.99 Great British Pounds. But that does include quite a lot of other content too, including the Lost Colony map when that releases. It has a unique function that when it is perched on your shoulder, of earning its own XP gains, passively and while killing creatures with your character, or while riding a creature for best results, capping out at 30k. So once you get close to that, you're ready to gobble up some tasty loot. To do this, you drag your Drakeling's attack option onto your hotbar, and when positioned on your hand, you can switch the mode to stored XP by pressing the reload button. For example, R on PC, X on Xbox, or square on PlayStation. After doing so, aim at your creature, and you can press the alternate attack key to give all that XP to your tame. And you will also receive a new item inside your inventory known as the Dragon Horde key. You can then use this from your inventory, where a blue waypoint will now be visible on screen. Head to that waypoint, and when in range, it will turn green, and a treasure chest will appear, which rewards you with an absurd amount of loot. It really is a loot goblin's dream. Hands down one of the coolest shoulder pets in the game. Up next is my personal favourite way to farm loot on Valguero, which is found in the Aberration Red Zone crates, aka the Unknown. This is also a very easy method of farming loot, and it is some of the highest quality you can find on the map. All you need is the right equipment for it to be easy. There are numerous entrances to the Aberration Zone, however there is one that is the best to take, found directly in the centre of the map at 38.3 latitude, 58 longitude. You can't miss it because the entrance is massive, and has giant glowing purple crystals around the front. Head inside and follow the path down until you discover a right turn. Take that turn, and once reaching the end of that, hug the entire cave to the right. Doing this will finally lead you to the Unknown, and once again it is a very easy area to spot. It will stick out like a sore thumb with the amount of glowing red crystals inside. You can see the rough path to take on screen right now. One thing to note is that this region is of course a no flying zone, so flying up to the main entrance outside with any flyer will dismount your character, so you need to bring other means of transport, and ideally to farm these crates quickly you want to be using a rock drake. Here are some of the dangers you will face in the Unknown. The entire area is irradiated, risk of falling, and of course dangerous threats you'd find in Aberration's Red Zone, but most notably Reapers, Nameless, Rock Drakes, and Seekers. This means you will be needed to plan accordingly. So along with the standard gear you typically take with you whenever out exploring, you will need a full hazard suit to protect you from the radiation, and if for some reason you are using a creature that is not immune to radiation, a good stack of mushroom brews to feed them is always a good idea. Bringing a light pet is also a good idea to deter Nameless and Reapers, but remember Seekers are attracted to the light, so you have to alternate between turning it on and off at times. If for some reason you don't own a Rock Drake, I did end up using a Deinonychus with mushroom brews to grab my first Rock Drake egg, so you can use whatever in this area if you're comfortable enough that you can make it work. I can imagine land mounts like the Phylocolia or the Procoptodon paired with mushroom brews would still be a great way to farm these crates. So back to the supply drops. All of the drops that spawn down here are seemingly purple, yellow, and red Aberration crates, so this will be your go-to for finding high quality Aberration saddles and gear like the hazard suit, etc. But these do also drop a lot of high quality weaponry and armor too, like flak and long neck rifles just for example. There is around 3 or 4 that spawn at a time, but following suit of the previous loot crate methods, these crates will respawn almost instantly. You can find drops spawning on most of the ledges at the top around the circumference of the Rock Drake Trench, and also the middle floor if you can call it that, where also Rock Drake nests can be found, and all throughout the bottom of it where nests and the artifact lie. So you'll be alternating from searching high and low for these, as there is a good number of locations where they can spawn. This red zone is however very tiny, which is why it is the best method for me and easiest way to farm loot. I did initially think these drops were unlimited, but after picking up around 12 they did stop respawning, so maybe they do need a rest at some point. So if you do find yourself in the same boat as me and the crates stop respawning, maybe return half an hour or so later and rinse and repeat the process. I wasn't initially going to add treasure maps to the list at all, as there's not really any decent way to farm them on the map. Treasure maps kind of come to you rather than you go to them, so it's not really a viable way to farm loot. But they do reward you with some of the best and highest quality of loot you can find in the game, and for the most part it seems overcapped by a mile, so they're kind of too good not to mention. This is also a paid feature that is included in the Bob's Tall Tales DLC pack, so you will need to own that to be able to use the treasure maps. These chests and maps work just like any other loot crate in the game, requiring you to be a certain level to unlock each. To find maps, you need to kill certain carnivores. There's not really any good way to find these maps that I've discovered so far, but running caves will always give you a good chance due to the amount of carnivores inside. If you are unsure of how they work, I do have a full guide here in this video. Link will be in the description of the video. Random structures, consumables, saddles, weapons, armor, pretty much anything can be found in these chests. Even primitive maps are worth digging up. I would never go out of my way to kill endless creatures just to find a map, but I did want to mention how good they can be if you ever have one in your back pocket and have a shovel ready to go. And that's going to be the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it and found it helpful. And if you did, please consider liking, commenting, sharing around and subscribing for more. And I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Goodbye.